I usually tell them to go with that. Nobody missed this year.
I got Jack back there, that's why he's back there, he's on virtual.
Have everything? She does know you.
If you are satisfied with your message, press 1 to listen to your message. Press 2 to erase and re-record. Press 3 to continue recording where you left off.
I need everybody
Press
to
4.
Hello, we're calling our meeting to order.
Are you still there? If you are satisfied with your message,
I want
press
everyone
1
to
to
look
listen
at
to your
the
message.
agenda and
Press
see if
2
they
to
have any
erase and re-record.
questions or not.
Press 3 to continue recording where you left
What
off.
is that?
Press
What's that
4.
noise?
It sounds like my call went off.
We're
Are
good?
you still there? If you are satisfied with your message, press 1 to listen to your message. Press 2 to erase and re-record. Press 3 to continue recording where you left off. Press 4.
Are we good?
Sorry you're having trouble. Your message has been sent. Goodbye.
Technology.
You want me to mute Jack, is that what you're saying? Hey Jack, you're muted, so whenever we get into the cases, if you need to say something, I guess I can, will he be able to unmute himself, or, so how will you comment?
He can text.
I'm here, Diane.
Oh, good.
Okay.
Jack, we never thought you would answer. I mean, you've been gone forever.
My heart is still in Oxford.
Well, that's about all. Okay, if everyone would look at the agenda and see if they have any additions or questions concerning the agenda. If not, I'd like a motion to approve it.
So moved.
We have a motion to approve the agenda. Do we have a second?
Second.
And we have a second by Priscilla. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No one's
Aye.
opposed. The agenda stands. And now we go to the minutes. And if you've had an opportunity to read those, are there any corrections, changes, additions that you would like to make at this time? And if not, I would entertain a motion for approval of the minutes.
So moved.
We have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
And we have a second. Any discussion? Then, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Aye.
Thanks, Jack. No one opposes? Then the minutes will stand. So are you ready for the staff report, Kate?
I do not have a staff report today, so we can just
No staff
move along,
report.
yeah.
Okay. And then there were a number of administrative approvals, so let's go to the public hearing. And our first case, let's see where I am. Public hearing number 790. It's requested by Jonathan Maddox, and I think we need to,
Yeah, I need to recuse myself.
Virginia needs to leave.
Okay, so this is case number 790 regarding property located at 515 North 14th Street. The applicant seeks approval to add on to the existing structure. Building is described in the Historic Resources Inventory Survey as circa 1920, one-story craftsman bungalow. A gable front side addition in the rear was added circa 2016. The building was approved at that time for a 1,128 square foot addition. And then in June of 2018 that was in June of 2018. And then the whitewashing and lime washing in April of 2019. The building was highly altered by these changes. While the original portion of the structure does front North 14th Street, the main volume of the building, which we're seeing here, fronts Washington Avenue and has an entrance that's now effectively the primary entrance to the home. The applicant seeks approval to remove the existing carport and sunroom that front Washington Avenue to build a new garage and sunroom addition, so the rendering of the proposed project is what you're seeing here. As described in the application, the existing carport will be replaced with an enclosed garage. The addition will also enclose and expand the existing screen porch into a sunroom and include a second floor den space and spare bedroom. The addition is attached to a previous addition and is not on the character-defining face of the original house. The Oxford Design Guidelines emphasize the importance of the compatibility of new additions in size, scale, setback, materials, and design. They recommend that an addition should, 1, be located on a non-character-defining elevation, 2, not remove, damage, or obscure character-defining architectural features, 3, be compatible in materials, design, roof form, and proportions to the main structure. However, new additions should be constructed at a scale smaller than the existing structure so as not to overpower the existing building. 4, be representative of the time in which they're built. 5, not mimic or recreate the architecture of the primary structure. 6, be clearly identifiable as an addition. And 7, complement the main structure. This proposal meets a majority of those recommendations as laid out in the design guidelines. It features exposed rafter tails along the roof line and a proposed shed dormer, and the style and material of the new addition are compatible with the existing building and addition that exist on the site. The roof form of the proposed new addition is clearly differentiated from but compatible with the existing structure and the existing addition. And the proposed addition is to be constructed at the rear of the existing home, which is a non-character defining elevation. It will not damage any original materials as it will be attached to an existing addition. Where the proposal falls outside of the guidelines recommendations is in the scale and height of the new addition, and the commission may also wish to discuss the cumulative square footage of the new construction relative to the total area of the original resource along with the height. The height of the new addition is slightly higher than the existing addition and the original portion of the building. This is in conflict with the recommendations of the design guidelines, which state that new additions should be constructed at a scale smaller than the existing structure. Additionally, the commission may wish to discuss the addition of the garage in place of the existing carport. While the garage is not front-facing, it will front Washington Avenue. The original portion of the home, which you can see in the left side of this is a side elevation, but in the left side fronts North 14th Street. So that's where the original portion of the house fronts. Attached garages have been a major point of discussion between the commission and applicants in recent years. Garages were not an integral part of the residence until the end of the 20th century. Prior to that, detached garages were sometimes built, becoming prominent by World War II. Staff typically encourages applicants to locate garages at the rear or in a minimally visible location, or to build a detached garage, though that would be challenging in this instance due to the nature of the lot. The addition of attached garages is not directly addressed in the Oxford Design Guidelines. Staff finds that the proposed design meets many recommendations of the design guidelines, that additions be located at a non-character defining elevation that's compatible in materials, design, and roof form, is clearly identifiable as an addition, and it complements the main structure while being clearly of its time. Where the design is in conflict with some recommendations of the design guidelines and precedents set by the commission, that the new addition should be compatible in proportion to the main structure and constructed at a smaller scale to not overpower the existing building, and in the addition of attached garage facing Washington Avenue. This building is already highly altered. While the original form of the building remains, the existing additions and paint greatly change how the building is used and viewed, and even the building's primary orientation. While it's preferable that applicants strive to meet all of the recommendations of the design guidelines, in this instance, staff finds that the proposed addition meets the bulk of their recommendations and is recommending approval of the COA. So I'm happy to answer any questions you guys have about the staff report. Jonathan Maddox, who's the architect for the applicant, is here if you guys have any questions for him.
Does anybody have any questions for Jonathan or any discussion about the design that we have before us?
I'll put up, he has some existing photos that
Diane, I would, I don't want to interrupt somebody else who's speaking. Is there any other speaking happening now?
No.
I didn't catch what he said.
Well, I'd like to pick up on the staff's thinking that it would be appropriate to have discussion about the cumulative square footage of what's proposed compared to the original portion of the house. You know, the original house is just lost, it seems to me, in all of this. The garage, I know it's facing not 14th, but Washington, seems so dominant. So I personally I'm challenged by the amount of addition compared to the original house, and the fact that the garage is so prominent on the other front of the house.
Okay, so noted. Does anyone have anything they want to add to what Jack just said?
My thinking is along with Jack's, and my question is, was there any effort made to make the garage less dominant in the design, and could that be accomplished?
We're very limited in space on the site. We're at the rear. The cars are already parked here. What we're really attempting to do is to cover them up. There's no storage either, so the things that end up in one's garage too, if left out now in the carport, are visible. So enclosing those, we thought was an improvement to the street front. We did study hard how we could get a little additional square footage for the house in an extra bedroom, and trying to accomplish that under the existing roof line was difficult. Almost impossible, because the space that we're left with just simply isn't kind of worth the effort it takes to build that second floor. I think you have to back up too and take this in context, considering what the house is adjacent to this and across the street. Those are all larger and taller than this house. So in the context of those, although this ridge line does step up a little bit, although it steps back before it steps up, it would not be kind of overpowering at all to anything else that's happening on the street. It's still the smallest and shortest house of those adjacent and across from it. So not being able to make it less dominant, because there's only one way to enter there for parking cars, we simply just tried to make it blend in as much as we can. There was a question about whether, you know, garages should be attached or not. There's lots of examples in this neighborhood. Many of them are new construction or new construction on older houses, like the Tatum residence, which is also on Washington, just on the other side of Lamar. It has a double garage that faces Washington in the same way, much closer to the street, I might add, than this. Our garage actually steps back from the front facade of the previous addition. But then, you know, going down 14th, there's the Tan home, the Cockerhan home. There are plenty of other examples. On Washington, I thought right across the street from this, there was one in the Mansell property, but when you actually look at it closely, there's a little slot that you can walk under. The roofs are all connected, so it sort of feels like an attached garage, but in fact, I guess technically isn't, since you have to walk outside to walk in it. But my point is, I think there is definitely precedent for this, and it wouldn't be kind of a standout odd move in doing so. But the property is small. I mean, there's really very little we can do. One point of clarification, because Kate said it both ways, but the proposal is to replace a screen porch for the sunroom, and it's a very small screen porch too, and isn't very usable. Enclosing that is just giving them, again, more living space. So
Yeah, sorry.
it's a carport. Yeah, it's stated correctly the second time you referred to it.
But to answer one of Jack's questions pertained to the square footage, that was the addition versus the square footage of the original structure.
To the original structure, I don't know, and I don't know if that's in the file, and Kate knows the answer to that. The house as it is right now is around 2,000 square feet, and we're adding slightly under 600 square feet of additional space in what we're doing. So we're not talking about, you know, exorbitant additional square footage.
Well, does the garage count if it's not heated and cooled in square footage?
It does not.
I didn't think it did.
So, Jonathan, was there an option to put some sort of breezeway ever so short to connect the carport to the house?
Can we see the site plan? No, Jack, there's not, because we had to make the structure slightly wider to accommodate cars when there's walls. And you'll see that we're right at the setback line in doing so. So there really is no room to make it wider or to detach it.
And what's that on top of the carport illustration? Is that living space up there with the big dormer?
It is.
I can honestly say, Jonathan, it's not my favorite design that you've done and brought before us. But I do understand that, of course, my opinion doesn't really matter in what I prefer or don't. I do know from Kate telling us that the bulk of what you're asking for does fit the guidelines. And I think that's something we need to think about. It just seems like it's all garage. At least from the drawing, you know, it appears that that's what you see when you look at the side of the house.
Is there a way, I mean, I agree with you, it looks like a garage with a little house
Attached. Yeah.
The overhead anymore, did it?
What
We
about,
don't have the overhead anymore, did it?
Do you have a different drawing?
I just had some photographs.
We can ask them to switch it back.
Part of that may be a poor choice of the way I oriented the drawing, which was really just trying to focus on the new part. I think if I'd shown it maybe more straight on, it wouldn't seem like the smaller part diminishing in perspective
If you're looking at it from the end
is
of the
smaller,
driveway,
and the
I
new
don't
house
think it shows up
is bigger.
Yeah, it does.
It'll kind
So-
of
You know,
be
the dormer on the garage appears to be larger than the surface of the gable over that entrance to the house. I mean, everything about the garage just seems almost out of proportion.
could you put the gate? I think the gable really makes it look a lot more dominant than it is.
Well, let's see what
Let's take a-
another angle would look like.
Yeah.
Is there
I
something-
don't have it in drawing. Can I pass this picture down?
Yes, I guess.
What I'm attempting to show you is just a photograph taken from the intersection. So looking at that side of the house from a different angle, I think shows you how the current carport, which we're in that same footprint in terms of street front, is really diminished.
Side of the gable, that would help.
And you see the other houses in context.
I'm trying to take pictures with one that overhead underneath. That's
I'd have sent it earlier, but I took it at like 4:15.
right here.
Jonathan, what are your thoughts about reducing the size of the dormer or eliminating it altogether?
Eliminating it altogether would be an unfortunate thing to happen to the space that we're creating inside. There is a window at the gable end, so there's some light into that space, but being able to raise the roof within that dormer really allows us to have enough room underneath the slope of the roof to actually inhabit it well. If you eliminate it entirely, it almost eliminates the room. Could it be a little bit narrower? Perhaps.
Or
But-
could it have 3 instead of 5, and then become a little less dominant?
Can it be put on the other side of the roof?
No, we actually have a gable on the backside to try to get more space on that side already.
How tall is the ceilings in that room?
In the upstairs room, 8 feet. And in the dormer, it goes down to 7.5.
I just think the dormer is too large. I mean, it's the first thing I see on the whole house.
The dormer is very like the one that's directly beside it. you see in this photograph. And in that house, it's up the hill slightly, but it's also taller. I mean, so I think in context, when standing there, if this project were completed, and you stood there in front of it on the street, in context, I don't know that you'd have the same reaction.
Yeah, I mean, you're right, Jonathan. that is the smallest house on the block. Every other house, I don't want to say towers over that one, but they're all.
I'm not going to ask to show the second picture, which shows the other houses across the street at the same time, but no, it's okay. I think my point is made. I think everyone understands, but.
I mean, I understand it in relationship to the other houses on the street, but I look at it as the house itself. Are we doing the right thing for the house? You know, it doesn't really matter what, I mean, it does, obviously, but it's not, shouldn't really override what happens to this house, because it is modest. And you don't want to look like you're trying to make something that competes with it. But I understand the need for the room and the light. So, and my thinking is just to take another pass at the dormer.
If the dormer were 7 to 8 feet narrower, do you think you would feel more comfortable with it?
I believe so.
How wide is it now, Jonathan?
14 feet.
I agree with what I've just heard about we want to regard nearby structures, but I don't think that's what's important here. It's this particular structure we're looking at. And I personally, one vote couldn't support what I'm looking at here. I perhaps could if it, had 3 windows instead of 5.
There is a point where you make the dormer smaller and it becomes kind of an oddly small thing happening on the roof.
Yeah, it starts looking dorky.
There is
I
a balance.
understand, but it's a fine line.
I do think it looks a lot better than the one next door that you just showed in the picture from the corner. That dormer looks extremely long.
Yeah, well, it's a very good way of capturing additional space under a roof in these houses that are
But
previously
it's on the
one-story.
side of the house.
It is, but,
This one technically is too, just happens to be on the corner.
Yes.
right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Well, corners are always hard.
And being a corner lot really limits our use of the space because we have front yard setbacks on this side as well.
Is there any other discussion about this or any questions to Jonathan?
Jonathan, in looking at the rendering again, I understand there's not enough space for a breezeway between the garage and the house. Is there any sort of architectural detail that could be put between the original structure and this changed carport that would sort of make it not just a simple continuation of the elevation of the house visually?
I don't know, Jack. I mean, we don't have a lot of space because the space that we've created behind the wall is what it takes for 2 cars. But if we say we stepped back 2 or 3 feet wide strip of it to kind of delineate it even more than how much it steps back from the front wall of the previous addition, that would create a break in the roof, I think, or a misalignment of the eaves. So that would just be more going on. I think simpler is better, which is how we ended up with this approach. And I don't think the client would disagree with me in saying, I pushed very hard for us to try to find a way to do this in something that was shorter, and it just simply doesn't make sense. Space is very valuable here, and so you need to maximize it as best you can. That's brought us to where we are.
What I'm reading from the what the staff put together, is that they're in agreement with the bulk of what you're doing. Where the problem lies is that a new addition should be compatible in proportion to the main structure and constructed at a smaller scale, not to overpower the existing building. I think from what we're looking at here, just from this straight on, we see that it does overpower it. Then I have to stop and think, this house is on a corner. The main entrance is really on 14th Street. Washington is the one where the cars enter. You turn the corner and you're going straight or you're coming down it, do you really notice the scale at that angle? Is that something that is noticed?
That was part of my point in this image, taken at the intersection.
And because staff still felt comfortable enough to approve the COA, I'm kind of thinking that that might be what we're overlooking here, is riding by the house, because it is a corner lot. So I'm thinking that is probably why staff said that they could say that they could approve this COA because of that. Is that right, Kate? Nod.
Well stated.
Yes. Sort of.
I think, you know, if I could have hit every button, I would have.
Yes, I know you, Jonathan, I know. Does anybody have?
Can you go back to your statement, Jonathan, of what if you reduce it by 7 or 8 feet? I'm speaking of the dormer.
Well, my statement was there is a point where you can overdo that, and somewhat seemingly to make it more modest, you just create a roof intervention that looks awkward because it's not well proportioned.
I think the dormer is the right size.
I regret not bringing it in 2D elevation where you can sort of see the space around it, because I think it is proportionate to the doors below it and that part of the house.
But that addition does dominate that side of the house.
There again, Jack, I think what I'm saying is, yes, it does, but to what extent? Because you are turning the corner from 15th onto Washington, or you're zipping down Washington, you're going to turn left or right, preferably right, on to 14th. So I'm just wondering how important it is at that angle.
It's also further off the street than every other house on that block.
Yeah. Although I'm the first to say, and I did say, that I'm not in favor of Jonathan's design.
I don't take it entirely personally.
Yes, I know.
Yeah, I understand your point. I do.
Feels like it's not the best angle to be looking at it.
But
That top
when
picture.
you look at this,
Do you have a photo of the front
when
of
you
the
look at
house?
these,
Yeah.
We have some, maybe of a similarly poor angle.
From the survey?
Oh, the front, oh, that side.
Yeah.
Jack, I wish you were able to see what we're looking at that Jonathan brought. It's not available.
One of them was on the screen temporarily.
Take a picture of the other one.
Yeah, I think this might.
I'm just looking at the document that, we received from the staff.
No, you look.
I've already seen this one, you can show it.
Good screen share.
Well, mine is only one opinion, so I certainly understand that.
Well, but we'd like for you to feel comfortable as well.
I'll be comfortable with the majority vote.
Okay, email it.
Yeah, he says he'll be comfortable because he didn't wants to.
With the cool breeze.
Yes.
was just gonna send it to me, but I'm about to share it.
Does anybody have anything else they'd like to talk about while we're in the process of getting this photograph online? No?
Nope.
Look in spam, I didn't put a subject on it, may have. I apologize again for not sending these before. But I've been thinking a lot about this, you know, since I read the report and was
All right, Jack, can you see
trying to
that?
understand it.
I'm sorry, I did not hear that.
Can you see what's on the screen now? Is that available to you?
I cannot, no.
You cannot.
Were you able to see the other images?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that either.
Oh,
Are you able to see any of the images?
I think he called into the meeting, so he's not.
Yeah.
No, my device just doesn't communicate with our Zoom
Okay.
software. So I'm just looking at, you know, again, the illustrations from the packet sent out.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any other questions or concerns that they have for Jonathan or Kate?
I just feel like if that picture that we're using, we're taking from this angle right there, it would show you that it's just not,
Yeah.
as
It's not a
intrusive
factor.
as it looks
Yeah,
like.
it's not a factor.
Say that again, please, Diane.
Luke said that the angle we're looking now that you cannot see really shows that the addition is not a factor.
So Jack,
Okay.
we're looking at a photo of Washington Avenue, looking up the street towards Lamar. So further toward the North 14th side of the house, looking down Washington to look at the scale of the buildings on Washington. So that's what everyone's seeing.
You know, I absolutely respect the fact that y'all can see things that I cannot, and appreciate your comments from seeing that.
Jimmy, did you have anything you wanted to say?
I can just summarize what we've said. Pretty much, nobody really is enthusiastically all for the design, and what else can you do? I think Jonathan has tried to limit the complication of the addition, and I think what he said is right. Maybe simpler is better. And the carport's an add-on, and at some point there's going to be another design that comes for approval that's going to be very similar to what Jonathan's proposing. I don't know what else is going to be different from the next addition proposal from either these homeowners or another set. In the neighborhood, that addition is not overwhelming in the neighborhood. It's even going to be small compared to the house on the right.
Okay, anybody else have anything to say, or do I have a motion to either approve or deny the COA, or to do a partial approval of the COA?
What would a partial approval be?
if we approve the bulk of it, but ask Jonathan to come back with a little different design, if possible.
In that case, I think it would be a table rather than a vote.
Yeah, we could do that,
Rather than
table
vote to
it.
deny.
Yeah.
But that's up to Jonathan.
I just don't, in looking at this angle, it's made me feel more comfortable with the house being like that, and based on the fact that the staff does agree with the COA, whether that is pulling teeth out or not, they have put their stamp of approval on it, so I'm just now looking for direction to go from the other commissioners.
You know, all the discussion has been about what else can be done to it, and I just don't see much else you could do to keep the little bit of space they're gaining. They're not really gaining that much space, but it is good, usable space. And with the COA, you know, being recommended by the staff, I would put forth a motion to approve it.
So you're saying to approve it as it is? Is there a second or any discussion concerning this?
Second.
So Jimmy is seconded. Is there any other discussion that we need to have at this point? Then shall we vote? Is everyone in favor of this COA? Say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay. Jack didn't say a word. COA stands.
No, I vote yes.
Okay. Thank you, Jack.
Thank you.
Okay, our next COA is 791, requested by the Design Studios for exterior modification to property located at 505 North 15th Street.
Okay, so this is a house that's currently under construction at 505 North 15th Street. In 2020, the building was approved with a unique feature, a set of garage doors that give the appearance of a bay window or continuation of a front facade. At the time, the design was praised by the commission and staff as a unique solution to the challenges of the topography of the lot, which would allow for a front-facing garage and a front facade that meets the recommendations of the design guidelines. The applicant returns to the commission to request approval to install more conventional garage doors in place of the previously approved system. The application notes that the approved garage doors for 505 North 15th have proven to be too heavy with the windows and steel frame, and the carriage door hardware will not support that additional weight. So they're requesting to install carriage doors which resemble those approved at neighboring 503 North 15th Street. While the current design lines do not address attached garages, their use has typically been discouraged in the city's historic districts. This should sound familiar from the last report. Garages were not an integral part of the residence until the end of the 20th century. Prior to that, detached garages were sometimes built, becoming prominent by World War II. Staff typically encourages applicants to locate garages at the rear or in a minimally visible location, or to build a detached garage. That would be very challenging in this instance due to the topography of the lot. The neighboring building at 503 North 15th Street, which was also new construction, was approved by the commission with front-facing garage doors. While COAs are considered on a case-by-case basis, the commission's previous approval of garage doors at the neighboring property, which is also new construction and is very similar in style and design and sits on a topographically similar lot, mean that approval of this garage door would be consistent with the commission's previous decisions. For that reason, staff is recommending approval of the garage doors. And I apologize, I'll put the images up. And if anyone has questions for Jay, I'm sure he'd be happy to answer those.
Jay, would you like to come up in case there are any questions?
If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Okay. I'd like for you to be at the mic so we can hear.
I'm at the mic.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions concerning this design or Mr. Hughes? Jimmy, you look like you want to say something.
So the approved garage doors were purchased and installed and then they didn't work?
Oh, no, they were designed by engineering and worked with Slater, the airplane hangar, in order to try to get it up. So there were two issues with that. So it was just like any other building. It was a design that had not yet been implemented to create this illusion, sort of like an aircraft hangar door.
And that's the top drawing.
That's the top drawing.
Okay.
But by the time you're adding two double hung windows, Geldwin windows, the 2x4 side, then the metal superstructure around it, we exceeded 700 pounds. As a result of that, it took a hydraulic pump that was much bigger than we had planned and a 3x4 steel beam on each side. These were only 8 feet wide door openings, and it got us down to 7 feet 3 inches. Since then, Allison Duckworth has bought the house, or she's under contract for it. Better buy it. And she drives a full-size Suburban and always has. And that, if we get it down to 7 feet 2 inches, she's not going to fit in her garage. So it was a combination of, by the time we got to engineering and recognizing how it diminished that, and there's the comfort level of Allison as a single person who maintains her own property, of not wanting to deal with this prototype implementation and what it's going to be in 2 years or 3 years if it doesn't work as designed. So that's the reason that we did. And then we went back with the Coplay CD13, which is the most, it's a very good quality door, not cheap by any stretch. And it's got the greatest resemblance to carriage house doors, which is the only feasible substitute. But to answer your questions, Jimmy, yes, I had bought the metal, I've bought the windows, I've bought a lot of things. I was invested. This is not bait and switch. This is to accommodate reality and the homeowner.
All right, thank you.
Visually, I think they look great.
Well, thank you. I really wanted to try it, but she's not a gambler, so.
I meant the replacements.
Yes, ma'am.
Are there any other questions to Mr. Hughes? Well, Jack, do you have any questions?
I don't. I will make the motion that we approve the COA as presented.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
We have a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Aye.
The COA passes.
Thank you.
So, Kate, we have 2 complimentary reviews.
Yes. Okay, so our first complimentary review is for 1420 Madison Avenue, which is listed as contributing in the North Lamar Historic District, described as circa 1925, 1-story, 3-bay frame with brick veneer, craftsman bungalow. The date of construction, based on our Sanborn maps, is estimated between 1925 and 1948. And I'll let Jonathan present his design since it's complimentary here. Yep.
Thank you. So there's nothing, I don't think, terribly controversial about our intentions here, and we're still working on those for an approval next month. But I thought it would be a good opportunity to come and just get some feedback from you while we're still in the formative stages of it. The changes that we're making are all to the rear. I think the question in my mind is, how well the scale of the addition will be received, in that we're putting on a 2-story addition, essentially, on the back of a 1-story house, although we're creating a walkout basement to make that additional space. We were trying to add bedrooms to this house for a family. It has 2 bedrooms now. One of them is 8 by 10, so that pretty much qualifies as a closet. So, you know, some additional space in the house is very much needed. There are, the next 2 houses down the street to the east both have walkout basements very similar to this, that I would show, but you can take my word for it.
You can put that in for your next.
Yeah, it'll be in there next time. But so we're doubling the size of this house, but we're doing it in a way that from the street, I don't think you really can't see it at all. Some of the other changes we're making, I think, are pretty straightforward in that it has, you know, a terrible replacement door. We'd like to put something more appropriate there. Changing out the windows, which I don't think are the original windows, or if they were, they're pretty cheap examples of windows that might have been done at that time. So, you know, really, as I said, nothing terribly controversial other than the size. But also, I think in just the way you perceive this on the street, you will not really see it at all either. Where you might see it, as you'll see next month, is from Jackson, or Jefferson. Because you can see there's a lot of grade change behind this house. So we would have to dig out to make this walkout basement, but we'd just be catching up with the hill that's down below us, and very similar to what is next door. One of the ways we're trying to minimize the appearance of the addition is that, and it's visible, maybe it's in the upper left, but also the bottom right, is that the roof line on the driveway side, which is the right side on the bottom right image, has a lower pitch roof slope before it steps up. So when you're looking down the side of that house, the roof is diminished and hidden sort of around the corner.
And the windows wood.
The windows currently are wood. The house is in bad condition. If you look at some of the pictures, there's some pretty significant cracks on the east side. We fully understand that. There's a lot of sagging in the foundation. That 8 by 10 bedroom probably has a 6-inch slope across it. But, you know, all those things we just intend to repair. We don't need to make changes otherwise. This is the wall where you see the evidence of the foundation's deterioration, and it's kind of been badly patched. There's no way to patch it where it won't be visible, but we understand that. It's just accept it as what it is. It is what it is.
Is there a driveway? Or is there
There-
a garage?
There isn't a driveway.
No?
There will not be a garage. There's a tiny little pull-off on the street, which is not unlike many other houses there. You really can't even see it in that aerial overlay, but it's adjacent to the parking pad that the neighbors have created for parking on the left side of their property. They have a driveway on the right that kind of goes back and down a little bit, but we don't have clearance to park beside the house, really.
Jonathan, I think the only problem you'll have with this is that you're doubling the size of the house. I think that'll be your problem. Although I do understand it's not visible from the street, but that's something that kind of red flags your guidelines.
Right. And that's why I wanted to have this conversation now while we're still trying to finalize decisions. It does step in, not very evident in the elevations, but it's not as wide as the original house. There's a little indentation on each side, so it kind of clearly,
So it delineates it?
clearly delineates it. Yeah, it's visible on the site plan too, but you can see it in that bottom image.
And are you gonna try to match do you have a brick selected?
It's that, you know, kind of raked front brick that it's out there, but it's hard to find.
Yeah.
We'll try to do something.
This is a question for Kate. Kate, in our guidelines, do we make specific reference to the percentage the limit of the increase from an original structure?
Our current guidelines, which we're using to evaluate this design, no. In the revised guidelines, which have not yet been adopted by the Board of Aldermen, it explicitly, I have it somewhere. It explicitly states that the building footprint of an addition should not exceed 50% of the building footprint of the historic portions of the building. So it depends, I guess, on how long this project goes on. We're still working on the ordinance edits associated with the new design guidelines, so those have not been brought to the board yet.
And in terms of footprint, it may not exceed 50%.
Right.
It might very well be close, but it doesn't radically exceed it. We're gaining a lot of additional square footage by stacking
By
it
going in.
and by digging down.
I don't know that he's asking about, just because of this specific project, but that was a request of the commission that we put into the guidelines.
Jonathan, is there only 2 floors on that?
Yes, 2 floors. The main level, which is expanded, and the lower floor. Downstairs, there's just 2 bedrooms and 2 baths.
Does anybody have any questions? Or Jonathan?
Any warnings for me before next month?
And it looks like the shape of the door, the front door, is it changing?
It is. We might not do that. But the door absolutely needs to change.
It's recommended against to alter original openings.
I think it will change, but it will not be a steel door.
I agree with you
like
that
the one
these
that's there.
windows, I mean, they maybe would, but I would have to look at them in person, but they look not original.
They look like replacement windows.
Yeah, I would think that they would have had some kind of divided light.
Yeah. I think I think it'd be more appropriate if they did, and others in the neighborhood do, so. It's more out of keeping now than what it would be. Okay. I'll keep working, but. All right. Thank you for your opinions.
Okay, we have another complimentary review, 1503 Johnson Avenue. And we have Stuart Pavone to answer questions.
Okay, so our last complimentary review for the evening is for 1503 Johnson Avenue, pictured here. That's the photo from our 2020 survey. 1503 Johnson Avenue is described in the Historic Resources Inventory Survey as a 1-story, 3-bay brick veneered ranch house with modernist influence built circa 1955. The applicant proposes a substantial rear addition that would connect the main house to the existing garage building. The applicant received approval at the August 12th meeting of the Planning Commission for a side yard setback variance to allow for construction of this new addition, should it be approved. So just to explain that setback variance a little bit, there's an existing garage building which would be attached into the new addition. It would all be a part of the main structure, and that garage sits over the side yard setback. So even though that portion of the addition is not new, it would become non-conforming once it was attached to the house.
Is that the building?
Yeah, and I'll pull up the plans, and Stuart, I'm sure, can take you guys through it.
Hey y'all, I'm Stuart Paval with Develop Design Studio, the architect on it. Yeah, so the garage was non-conforming as an accessory structure. It would, under current ordinance, be non-conforming as a accessory structure in 2 ways. It's over the setback and it's too close to the house. So anyway, the variance was sort of, it's so close to the house that if we were to do it today, it would be considered attached to the house anyway, even though it's 3 feet apart. So the variance was just to basically say we're hooking it up to the house now properly, I guess is one way to think about it. So the addition is, I love this house. I think it's a great little.
I like this house.
Yeah, it's a really cool little modernist, but not like, over the top modernist. I think it's really nice. So the front is preserved. We've worked hard to make sure that the addition, though it's taller than the house, is set way back from the front of the house. And that comes at a cost. We've got some sections of flat roof that are below your typical 412 in order to make sure that we don't have a ridge looming over the existing ridge, which were some of the original designs, working with Kate and looking at it ourselves. We worked hard to get that pushed back. So the addition is the current house is small. It's a 3-1. It's got a tiny little kitchen. It's basically, it's nothing but student housing the way it is right now. And so they are using it, I mean, as a second home, but the owner's goal is to make this their primary home and move to Oxford upon retirement. And so this is to try and bring it up to, more to those standards versus a rental student housing standards.
What's the current square footage?
I'm not sure if I have it on the plans. I realized that if I did not, that was an oversight that I should have. There may be a little, there we go, a chart up top. There you go. So we did have it on the plan. So the current square footage is 1,100. I mean, it's tiny for a primary home. So this is an attempt to try and make this, a primary home and turn it into something other than just rental housing. So yes, square footage is significant compared to the existing home. And I have my own concerns about that being in the guidelines personally, because I think that it's going to work against our goal to try and let these houses grow with Oxford. And our goal is to get primary homes. Anyway, I'm going to not get on that soapbox, but the addition is the existing ridge, which is about 4 feet higher than the new ridge is about 4 feet higher than the existing ridge, but it's like 50 feet back from the front of the house. So there's some 3D images that show that it's really not going to be visible from the street.
And the street is lower than that. The house is raised up.
It's high.
Yeah,
It's high.
It's about 8-9 feet from the street. So like that one at the upper right, that's really the only glimpse you'll ever get of that addition back there as it comes out to attach to the garage structure. The addition is a living room, because right now they really don't even have a living room in the existing house, and a master suite. And a second bathroom for the 1-3, the original 3-1 house. The new bathroom's gonna be tucked into the addition on the backside. So, like I said, we've worked hard to make the addition, though it is sizable, be hidden as much as possible behind the existing house and the existing garage. And materials, we're trying to differentiate from the existing house. We've tried to create as much of a hyphen-like connection as we can between the two, which I think is fairly successful. I mean, it's not a breezeway, but it does skinny in a little bit at that connecting portion.
So you're facing the same situation that Jonathan did, in that the square footage is large.
It is, but my concern is we have an 1,100 square foot house, and if this is going to be 1,600, it still is not going to move it beyond a student rental. I mean, if the goal is to allow these houses to grow with the times, and I just think that bit in the guidelines is going to be
Kate, did the new
problematic.
guidelines have a percentage for lot coverage?
No, but our
ordinance.
ordinance land development code does.
Okay.
Are we good here?
Yeah.
It's 50%.
Okay,
for the lot.
so you're under that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a good point, actually. I mean, that's something that should be considered along with.
Kind of weigh in.
And that's a point that you might want to bring out when you come back.
About lot coverage, yeah.
Which is in the code, whereas I suppose the 50% is recommendation.
Right. Yeah. That's the lot coverage is ordinance. I mean, we couldn't get permits if we exceeded that, but.
But that helps.
Does anybody have any other concerns or suggestions for Stuart while he's here?
I did notice. Go ahead, Jack. Sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, as you said, Diane, it's just a repeat of a concern, and that is cottages being transformed into substantial houses. I appreciate the need for growth, but then again, it does change a neighborhood when you lose cottages.
Andrew Silver, did you want to say something?
Well, I think the sizes, I mean, it's 2,300 square feet, it's not a McMansion
No,
or anything
it's
like
not.
that, you know?
Right, it's not like we're doubling a 2,000 square foot house.
And you don't see it,
No.
like you can't see it from the road.
So the purpose of a complimentary review, or as you know, is to bring these items up, so you'll be prepared when you come back the next time to what the commission would like to say.
Yeah, so definitely have heard you on the size, so we'll be prepared to talk more about that. I think it's a bigger conversation than this particular application personally, but
I did notice that the windows in the addition, maybe I got confused, are vinyl.
yeah, so the windows on the existing house are vinyl. The windows were replaced. They bought this house in 2006 for their kids to live in school. And so there was work done on it, not much, but there was some work done on it at that time, including window replacements before historic. So existing windows are vinyl in the house, and so we would be doing the same on the addition.
Are you replacing those vinyl windows? Okay.
Not touching them. I mean, we don't have to, but I would look at it and say I think it'd be kind of silly to force the addition to do, some nicer windows when the front-facing elevation is already vinyl.
I have my own personal preference, but I see your point.
Well, I think I should hear it. I mean, if your preference is that.
I mean, I would like to see wood windows that are appropriate for when the house was built, but it's not a deal breaker for me.
Okay.
Just my personal preference.
Okay.
Anybody else have anything for Stuart?
I'm sorry, so you're changing the front window, you're not touching the front windows?
Not touching.
So they were replaced probably when the house was purchased.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, they did a very light renovation
And
at that
what year
time.
was that? I'm sorry.
2006, I think it was.
It predates the historic district.
Yeah.
Jack, do you have any other questions?
I do not, thank you.
So my big concern was the height of the ridge. I'm hearing no big concerns about it being a little taller than the existing house, being set so far back. Okay. I've heard windows and square footage. Okay.
I think you've done a nice job of dealing with the roof elevation, and I understand you really won't see much, if anything, of this house, of the addition to this house. So that's certainly a good job as far as that's concerned.
Great. Thank you, Jack.
Okay,
All right. Thank you all.
thank you very much.
I like that you kept the ladders. I love those.
Kate, do you have anything for us? I did want to ask you, I know we've discussed at length today about detached garages and attached garages. So the new guidelines, are they changing anything with relationship to that?
I checked that earlier. There's no explicit language still encouraging detached garages. That being said, and I do feel like it's a pretty significant precedent by the commission. Like,
Is it there for safety more than anything else?
safety in what sense?
I mean, if they're detached, is it because of a fire or anything? I mean, what is the reason behind all this?
Oh, I think in the past, the commission has, what I've understood in the iterations of the commission I've been in front of since I started working here, that the preference for detached was simply because you would have a historic building and an outbuilding for other uses, and that's why.
And you didn't even have garages then,
Right.
because you didn't have cars.
Right. We do have, some of the outbuildings we see, we've had also problems with outbuildings and demolitions and that kind of thing that are addressed in the new guidelines. A lot of those outbuildings were garages that are now too small to house cars. since I started working here, it's rare that the commission has approved an attached garage. When a front-facing attached garage. There have been plenty of garages approved that are at the side or rear when the law allows for it, and it's hidden. That being said, we haven't adopted the guidelines, so if that's something that needs to be looked at further,
Well,
or if we're happy, it's either that or happy to continue with this precedent that's been set previously.
well, it might be interesting for y'all to take a look at that because of that being the norm in a lot of areas.
Yeah,
So it might be something to check into.
into making it more allowable to have them, or, okay. I think the way the guidelines are written currently lends itself to that because it does not discourage, it doesn't encourage or discourage either way.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
That makes sense to me.
Yeah,
So it's really a case by case.
yes. That being said, I've never been to such a garage heavy HPC.
Well, it was a garage
Yeah.
day. Does anybody have anything they want to add? If not, the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.